Hey everybody, this is Sean, and it's time for part 2 of our winemaking series. It's been a week since the last time we filmed or did anything with this wine, when we made our mash and got it fermenting. And since then, it's been sitting in this primary bucket. We've tested it every couple of days and given it a stir. And now on the 7th day, it's time to actually remove those berries. At this point, because we actually have berries and things floating in there still, it doesn't really matter what the actual rating is, because we have to get them out of there. You don't want them in there more than 5 to 7 days, or they start to actually break down and can actually add some negative flavors to your wine.
It's going to be gross. You don't want it.
Exactly. It makes those alcohols that you can't have, and that's how you end up with hangovers. But now we've got a good level of tannins, we've tasted it, we've tested it, and we're ready to move on. So I've got tools ready as well. We've got our carboy that's been sanitized, as well as some hose and a little pipe here so that we can siphon everything out. I've got a slotted spoon so I can remove the berries. And I've got a pot that I've sanitized that I can put the berries into. It's probably not going to be enough space. I might have to move some of them to some glass bowls that I have, but we'll clean those if we need them. So if you mysteriously see more bowls show up, that's what happened. And this here is the airlock for the top of the carboy. I've got some water in there. It allows carbon dioxide to escape, but no air to get out. So this thing will sit on top of the carboy once it fills with wine and bloop out carbon dioxide in the corner of the room every once in a while with a little bloop noise and scare you in the middle of the night.
It's creepy.
It's very creepy, and it does bloop. Once everything is in the carboy, it's actually going to sit there undisturbed for a month before you'll see us again. And that's just because that's what wine has to do. It's got to age, it has to finish fermenting. While we were actually doing our work, we started the wine on the 4th, and it had a 15% potential alcohol. And now on the 11th, there's a 4% potential alcohol left, which means that there is 11% alcohol in that solution already, which is kind of exciting. Okay, we've got our primary fermenting bucket up onto a counter now. This is probably going to be its final resting place until it's empty. It's going to need to have stuff siphoned out of it, so having it up on an elevated spot is really useful. But for now, we've got a whole bunch of berries in here that we've got to get out of here. Because I don't want those inside my carboy, and I'm probably going to have to crush them to get the extra liquid out to put that in with the rest of the booze so we don't lose it. So first get our airlock off of there. Make sure that all the water's out of it. I'll have to clean that out and put it back in storage for the next time that we do some wine. Get that open.
And that's why you want to remove the berries.
It is, yeah, there's a ton of them in there.
And it's got a very ripe smell.
It does, and if we leave them in there too long, then they start to rot.
But they don't smell rotten. They just smell fermented.
Yeah, which isn't bad. It's in fact exactly what we want. But if you look at those, they've basically yeast food at this point. You don't want to eat those. You don't want them in your finished product. And they're just, if you keep them in, it's going to lead to everything being cloudy and gross. And probably bitter. And I'm not worrying about getting all of the liquid out when I do this, because we can crush these berries and strain them in a jam bag later. Okay, we've gotten all the berries out of the wine, and it's looking like we're definitely going to have to get every single last drop of wine out of those to bring our liquid level back up. The carboy that we have is for about 23 liters of alcohol, so it's, you're kind of going to want to have that as full as possible, especially if you like wine, because the next step that we're going to be doing involves siphoning the rest of the liquid out of this into the carboy, and while doing that, we have to be aware of this little opaque level that you see in here, if you can make that up in the film, which is the lees, or basically the dead yeast at the bottom. It's yeast poop. It's really not that tasty. You don't want it in your wine. If you're a vegetarian, you probably eat it. People use it for nutritional yeast.
I don't like it.
Yeah, that's kind of where it comes from. It's basically leftovers from yeast. So I'm going to get my hoses.
Have we explained how siphoning works?
We have not explained how siphoning works.
We should probably explain how siphoning works. All right, so first you're going to take that tube.
We've got our siphon wand here and our siphon tube.
So the siphon wand goes into the wine, not all the way to the bottom.
No, you want to hold it in there sufficiently under the top level of the liquid so there's enough pressure on it. But the red cap lets you see that it's actually above, like right now it's basically touching the level of where the lees are. So this allows you to get all of the wine that you want without the gross stuff that's still on the top or the gross stuff that's in the bottom. So with this, I'm going to actually have to suck on the tube until I get it filled with liquid. It's going to rely on the pressure on the top of the actual wine to shoot wine up and through this tube out here and then down into our cleaned and sterilized carboy, where it's going to stay for the next month. So, time to suck.
Here we go. Here comes the wine.
And there we go.
Don't pull too hard.
Yep. This is the next step.
And we do this for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
We're both bent at an awkward angle.
It's really, really good for your back.
Super good.
And we will be back with you when we are almost done.
This part's super fun. This part's super fun. Wine!
Yes, wine. We've managed to siphon out as much as we could from our primary fermenting bucket. We still have a ways to go to fill up our carboy here, but I've plugged up this top anyway to make sure that everything in here is safe and sound as we continue on our little adventure. So, the bit that we have in here, most of the bottom is lees, which is the yeasty bit. The top portion we decided to sacrifice to us because it is Saturday and we want some wine. Wine. But that means I am going to have to go to these berries.
There's a lot of liquid in there still, like a lot of liquid.
A lot. And the best thing for me to do to get at that is to crush all of these up.
It sounds gross.
It feels gross.
But it will taste great.
Oh, wonderfully. We need more liquor.
In these trying times, it's what you need.
So that's why I bought some of these. I'm going to fill the poultry stuffing bag with berries. We're going to hang it, and then that is going to be how we get extra liquid for in our carboy. And then any extra little amounts that we need to build up in there, I am just going to replace with some Welch's grape juice, which I showed you in the last episode as one of your ingredients to pick up.
We drank yours.
We did. Like, I told you I'd picked it up for this. I told you I was most likely going to drink it. And lo and behold, we drank it.
Yeah.
Okay. This is almost as mushed as I'm going to get it because I have a limited amount of patience. But if you have a immersion blender, you can go ahead and just whir everything up in here too if you want to do it faster. It's kind of gross. This is just grossing me out. So this is about as much of that as I'm willing to do. Okay, we've got all of our berries ready to go here. I've got the turkey stuffing bag or little berry straining cloth ready to go in a sieve actually over my glass bowl. And I'm just going to scoop everything into there. And we're going to let it sit. We're going to let it drip. And we're going to let it do its thing. It's actually useful to allow this to drip overnight. If you can hang it, even better. But yeah, that's the next step. And it's really thick and it's really gross.
Smells good though.
It smells absolutely delicious. Like drunken berries and wine. So then you bring this all up like that. And you get yourself something like a chopstick or a coat hanger. And you tie it around this part here to keep it closed. And then you hang it. And as you can see, all of your liquid will drip out.
Can you also squeeze it?
You can squeeze it too, yeah. If you spin it and squeeze it, you can make the process go faster. and that's how you can keep it from being an overnight thing. But I find it a lot easier just to make a couple bags like this out of our berries, and then just hang them overnight. Okay, well, with that, I guess I'll be with you guys once we've done strained all our berries, and then we're going to fill up our carboy and see what our wine looks like before we let it sit for a month. Okay, we've got all our wine into the carboy, and we let everything sit and drip out, and just like what we said, we ended up drinking it instead of saving it to go in here. And that brings us to the problem of how do you fill up the rest of this jug? Because why would you let it sit around without making the full batch of wine? And also, if you have more surface area on the top, that's more chance for oxygen to get in here and turn this into vinegar. And what we want is wine and not vinegar. As you can see, we've got some healthy bubbly going, which means we have carbon dioxide production, and everything is still going happy. But I do want to fill this out more. So for that, I've picked myself up a whole bunch of white grape juice. I know we showed you some of the red grape juice before, the purple grape juice. It. Yep, we drank it. So I've got myself 4 jugs of this. Hopefully that's enough for us to fill things up. So let's go back to the jug, take off the top, and start pouring some stuff in. Okay, and the airlock is off, and it's in a safe and sanitary position. So it's time for us to start pouring in a bunch of juice. When I'm pouring things into here, I do try to have it hit the edge so that it runs down along the side, and that'll actually keep it from bubbling up everything and introducing as much oxygen as it would before. But it's a bit difficult, and if you can't do it perfectly, realistically, it's fine. There's not much oxygen inside this little jug. We haven't shooken it after opening it, and the amount of gas we had escaping tells us that we had a lot of CO2 in here. So I'm going to keep doing this. Hopefully this is enough. We'll do backup juice in case these jugs don't give us enough liquid in here. In she goes. You can buy yourself some grape concentrate if you want to do this. A lot of people actually use wine when they're filling up this part too, because they don't want to have a lower alcohol content. But I like using juice, and I already aimed for quite a high alcohol content in here. I mean, it was 15% without taking into account any of the sugars that came out of the berries. So I'm not worried about losing too much. I'm starting to suspect that we might need a little bit of the extra juice though, because I only have 1 more jug of grape juice left. Didn't get to save any for myself. We had that whole earlier jar for all of ourselves, so I'm not that worried. Oh no, it's coming up. It's almost enough. Okay, yeah, that's almost enough, but it's not quite there. I'm going to grab the other juice. The other juice I have is just some sun-ripe wild berry juice, because it has a mixture of everything. A lot of the flavors we already have in there. And just pour that in. There we go. You can see the liquid level is rising for us. I want it to come up into the spout. And there we go. Right where we need it. It's in the spout. It has a low surface area, but it's not too close to the top, so it's not going to bubble out. So I'm going to grab our little airlock, get that back on there, and that is the end of part 2. We have our wine sitting and aging, ready to go, and I'll be back with you in a month when it's time for us to rack this wine. So until then, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and have a wonderful night. Goodbye.